Good morning. It is February 7th, a Wednesday. It's 9 a.m. and this is the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission Wednesday meeting. We will initiate with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Ackerman.
Do I not have audio?
Oh, now you do.
Now you do.
Thanks. Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Cross.
Present.
Commissioner McGowan.
No audio, Commissioner McGowan.
We now?
Yes.
Yep. Commissioner McGowan is here.
Thank you. Commissioner Mesner.
Here.
Commissioner Oath. Commissioner Ray. Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 of 7 commissioners present.
Thank you, Hearings Manager Peskin. Appreciate that. We will roll right into our agenda. We start with commissioner comments. Does any commissioner have comments for the rest of us and or our stakeholders? Commissioner Messner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to inform the commissioners and folks listening that there is a Produced Water Consortium meeting this Friday. And it's a pretty good agenda. It starts at 9 a.m. It is open to the public. There are Zoom links available on the Colorado Produced Water Consortium website. We'll be talking about 2 of the different deliverables. Our first is our March 1st deliverable, which is a literature review to develop a library of guidance documents and case studies to promote and highlight different practices for in-field reuse and recycling of produced water. In addition, we'll talk about direction for our next deliverable as part of HB 231242, which is how state and federal agencies can better coordinate regulatory policies related to produced water. In addition, that meeting will include some presentations from different entities, including Eric Angland, who's the Rockies water manager for Occidental Oil and Gas. We'll talk about water treatment and reuse opportunities and considerations. We'll hear from Grant Tupper, who's the director of business development for Select Water Solutions, and he's going to present on a case study for in-field reuse. We're going to hear from Doug White, who's the executive vice president of NGL Energy Partners for around best practices used in the field for reuse and recycling of produced water. We'll also hear from Clay Terry, who's the managing partner of Natural Resource Advisors, LLC, about projects in oil field produced water treatment. And we'll hear from Dr. Cloel Danforth, who's the senior staff scientist for the Health Effects Institute, about a method to identify and prioritize produced water chemicals for research. And then finally, we'll hear from Dr. James Rosenblum, who's the managing director of the Colorado School of Mines West Water Technology Hub, and he's going to talk about water quality of produced water. And so those all tie into our strategic plan to develop an education knowledge base for Produced Water Consortium members, as well as members of the public, as we continue down our work towards meeting our deliverables associated with House Bill 231242. So anyone interested, feel free to join us.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner, for the overview and the invitation. Others with commissioner comments? All right, we will move down our agenda. I am going to make an audible, and I'd like to call upon AAG Lauren Mercer. Every so often, it's helpful for the commissioners to have a learning session and for our stakeholders to learn how we undertake certain processes. I think it would be helpful, AAG Mercer, if you could talk a little bit about our procedure for hearings, the fact that we swear in witnesses, and sort of the concepts around the Administrative Procedures Act regarding testimony before commissioners. AG Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, good morning, commissioners. I received a question that I think is a really important one, which is, why do we swear folks in at the outset of hearings? So I wanted to provide some of the legal background around that. And the simple answer is that it's required in our rules. Rule 510I requires that all witnesses in a hearing are sworn in before testifying. And that's a recognition of the fact that it's important for the commission to make its decisions based on truthful and accurate information. For similar reasons, our Rule 505 requires that a lot of the written application submittals be sworn or signed under oath. And so because of these requirements, as part of the process, ECMC staff and the commissioners routinely perform a good faith review of application materials and applicant testimony to make reasonable determinations about its truthfulness. This can sometimes require, as the commission is aware, follow-up questions from commissioners where perhaps something doesn't look quite right or could take some more explanation. It also can include, at the staff or commission level, verification of data based on other sources. And so in addition to these rule requirements, the other big reason why we swear in witnesses is because of Colorado law. So Colorado recognized the importance of agencies being able to rely on reliable, truthful witness testimony by making it a crime to essentially lie under oath. So Colorado law provides, and I'm reading here, that a person commits perjury in the first degree if in any official proceeding, which is defined to include administrative hearings like ECMCs, if that person knowingly makes a false statement, which he does not believe to be true, under an oath required or authorized by law. And that's first-degree perjury, which is a felony offense. There's also a lesser misdemeanor offense for similar conduct of knowingly making a materially false statement in written application materials submitted to the commission. So that's the sort of teeth behind the requirement that folks swear an oath and tell the truth. In addition to those criminal consequences, there are additional potential consequences in ECMC's rules. Rule 501B is one that the commission has been fortunate, at least in my tenure, not to have to make use of. But this is the rule on prohibition of abuse, basically allowing the commission to take action if parties to a hearing are acting in unethical or inappropriate ways. One of the things that's prohibited there is misrepresentation in pleadings or testimony. And if any of the conduct listed under that rule occurs, consequences under the rule can be including, but not limited to, dismissal of the application, limitation on harassing or abusive testimony, limitation on filing certain motions, restricted discovery, or even finding a party in contempt. And finally, to sort of round this out, if, despite all of these safeguards and requirements, the commission were to approve an application of some sort and later learn that that approval was based on a material misrepresentation, that could be grounds for the commission to move to revoke that permit under the Administrative Procedure Act. And the APA sort of provides more detail about what that would look like, what sort of procedural requirements and, obviously notice to the applicant, things like that are required. But that's what sort of one potential consequence here. So that is my overview. Wanted to just speak to sort of why we do what we do, and the importance that's been recognized in Colorado law and ensuring that folks are being truthful, and that you as commissioners and staff are, making credibility determinations and making reasonable attempts to determine that folks are being truthful. So thank you, Mr. Chair. If folks have questions, we could discuss that here, or depending on sort of the detail of the question, it might be more appropriate for an executive session.
Questions, folks? Really good summary. Appreciate that. Commissioner Messner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you, AAG Mercer, for providing that information. I think that's important and relevant information for us in the process of the work that we do and fully understanding the expectations of what needs to occur during a hearing. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner.
All right. With that, we will move to our first, actually, we have consent agenda. Anyone have questions on consent? We have a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to approve consent. Further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent carries. All right. Before we move to our first docket, let me provide someone from our staff with an opportunity to update us and the world with regard to the cumulative impacts rulemaking. Ms. Larson magically appears. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I just wanted to provide a brief update to folks about where we are in the cumulative impacts rulemaking and a few other rulemaking matters. We, staff, will be noticing tomorrow with the Secretary of State the cumulative impacts rules for rulemaking. A reminder, we have blocked off the last week of April, beginning April 22nd, for that rulemaking hearing on cumulative impacts. We will have the notice of rulemaking with the proposed rules available on our website. There will be an announcement under news and notices with, excuse me, with additional information for stakeholders to learn about that process, how to participate, etc. Also want to provide a brief update that we are having a stakeholder meeting tomorrow, Thursday, at 11 a.m. for the high priority habitat map rulemaking. As a reminder, ECMC is required to update the high priority habitat maps that the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Agency produces on an annual basis. That rulemaking must be noticed no later than February 28th. So we will have a stakeholder meeting tomorrow, again at 11 a.m. to go over what the maps look like and to discuss the process, how individuals can participate in that. And the information for that stakeholder meeting is on our webpage. It's on the calendar, which you'll see on the left-hand side of our website, and then also under news and notices. And finally, just wanted to also note that the geothermal rules are continuing to be revised by staff. We are working on them and are endeavoring to get those rules ready for a notice of rulemaking here as soon as possible. So that was it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you, the continued work on that by staff, and for everyone, there's your update. Go check out our website and we'll have things posted. Commissioner Messner?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I did have a question for Ms. Larson because I've been getting some questions about it as well. And so my understanding, at least, is during the, once the rulemaking is noticed, that there's required formal stakeholder process meetings or stakeholder meetings as part of the process. And I think I heard you say that for folks that are interested in understanding the schedule associated with those and how that is going to occur is going to be on the cumulative impacts website. Is that correct?
Yes. So when we notice the rules, we'll also include with that an update as to what the schedule looks like, how individuals can sign up to become a party in the rulemaking if they wish to do so. There will also be opportunities for individuals who do not wish to be formal parties to the rulemaking to instead provide oral or written comment to the commission. That will be part of our formal rulemaking record. But yes, we will continue to update folks as to what the schedule looks like, what additional stakeholder meetings there are, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Stick around, Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my apologies. I'm getting a cold and I had to go grab some Kleenex. Did you also let everyone know that I think what's going to happen next Wednesday is some sort of follow-up presentation from staff about what the updated red lines look like and why those changes were made?
Yes, we're endeavoring to get
Thank you.
that done as well. I don't have an exact date, but we will get that out as soon as possible.
Thank you. Sorry, not just getting it out, but is there going to be some sort of presentation to the commission?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, there will be.
Thanks.
Okay. With no further questions, we will move to the next matter on our agenda. This is docket 23030080, an oil and gas development plan for TEP Rocky Mountain. Why don't we take, well, this one should be pretty quick. It's Mr. Jewell and probably Mr. Kirtland, I believe. Good morning, Mr. Jewell.
Good morning indeed, sir.
Is it just the two of you?
It is just the two of us. Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Okay, Ms. Mercer, let's do the swearing ins of Mr. Kirtland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Mr. Kirtland. You're familiar with the drill by now. I'll just have you raise your right hand, state your name, and that you swear to tell the truth.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jeff Kirtland, and I do swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Mr. Chair, good morning, commissioners. Michael Jewell with Jewell Jimerson Natural Resources Law, LLC, on behalf of TEP Rocky Mountain, LLC. Proud again to be the largest, most innovative operator in the Piceance Basin. TEP is up to date on its financial assurances, and we are grateful for your time and consideration. I'm particularly grateful this morning for Hearings Manager Elias Thomas for scheduling us first, because United Airlines does not like me running into the plane last, waving my hands like a wild chicken. So thank you very much, sir. Very much. Trying to get to Houston today. So with me today is Jeff Kirtland, the regulatory manager for TEP. He will go to the finer points of the application and will further be able to address any questions you might have concerning this application after my initial summary. We further thank Ginger Malachowskis, the rest of the technical team, for their insights and feedback on this OGDP process. This application saw no amendments. The forms were sent back early on for what I would consider, I think you would as well, minor corrections in early 2023. So another testament to solid collaborations with permitting. On the application technicals, this is docket number 2303-00080. We're in Rio Blanco County this time after a long series of Garfield County applications that you have approved. This is for one new oil and gas location in the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, section 24, township 2 south, range 99 west, 6th principal meridian. TEP is formally requesting the ECMC to approve an order pursuant to rules 303 and 503 G1 for an approximate 5.304 acre oil and gas development plan for the development of 2 underground injection control wells. So overall, as our custom, we like to focus on what we think is the key negative. In this case, we think we're largely compliant with the rules. This is our first kind of new dirt turn as far as I can recall with all the OGDPs we have brought before you. But really, as we've considered, we wondered, well, is this really new? It's a broader part of our water recycling system that I know that you have become quite familiar and a key part of our water management system. So this conversation reaches back to the mission change rulemaking, where you heard our concerns and amended the proposed rules that are now codified in our regulations for this type of innovation and preparation. So it's part of that ongoing and continuing conversation as far as we're concerned. So this 5.304 acres, 5.299 are indeed new service disturbance, about 0.06 are redisturbance. The access road is 0.94 acres. The water line is 0.63 acres. The area of injection is a fixed radius of about a quarter mile from the proposed injection well pursuant to EPA guidance. The key public health, safety, welfare, and environment facts: there are no residential building units, high occupancy building units, schools, or child care facilities within 2,000 feet. That's just the rule call. It's really much farther than that. The nearest residential building unit, for instance, is just shy of a mile, 5,236 feet to be precise. We're right at 20 miles away from Rangeley, which is the nearest municipality, around 19 miles away from the Tank Center for the Sonic Arts, in case you were watching the Grammy Awards this past weekend. We are not within a DIC defined by the ECMC rules by the filing of this application. And TEP will pump recycled produced water from existing facilities via a water pipeline that ties back into TEP's existing water management system. Wildlife, fortunately, is de-emphasized here today. Credit given to, Mr. Tankersley, searching really hard to find the right location here to avoid the public health, safety, welfare, and wildlife resources to get the right location. The working pad is located outside of high priority habitat. And actually, we are 2,546 feet southeast of aquatic sportfish management waters, 4,670 feet southwest from the well pad surface from elk production area. So that's even below what high priority habitat is, and then from the next level of our concern. Now, this doesn't mean that we are not out of touch with CPW. This is still under consultation with Taylor Elm to decide on the great locations that we need to have. And because this well pad is located on BLM surface, we've had conversations about wildlife again to make sure this is a good location that they are comfortable with as far as managing wildlife. And as far as that goes as well, in managing wildlife, TEP does not plan on having on-site lighting during long-term injection operations, which brings a global point as well we want to highlight, is that injection facilities, as you know, operate differently from regular production facilities. Once you're drilled, once you're ready to rock, there's less maintenance, there's fewer trucks, and just overall less fuss. So my last overall point, our associated BMPs, which are more or less standard operating procedure, is that we're preserving dark skies, especially with our proximity here, particularly in Rio Blanco County. We plan to drill using a rig powered by dual fuel natural gas generators, of course. Lighting is shielded, directed downward. Separation measures for water-based mud and odor minimization techniques are used. Appropriate stormwater controls are being used. Proximate management purposes that are common sense are being used. For instance, bear proofing at facilities, installing water pipelines to minimize truck traffic to a location, and utilizing existing infrastructure and disturbance corridors wherever possible. So granted, we wouldn't bring this to you unless we thought it was fully compliant with the rules. But of course, it comes to you without any protest or petition. But we also mean that to mean informally and unofficially as well. No calls have been made to our field office, no calls to my office, even friendly calls that we had to field, we would bring those to you as well. So with that, I will hand it off to Mr. Kirtland here for further information. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Gill, and good morning, commissioners. Greatly appreciate your time this morning. And as is customary, I want to just provide some additional updates. Oftentimes when we submit our permits and try to predict what our schedule will look like, there are slight changes. So I wanted to update you on that factor. Relatively, this project will take a lot less time than what normally we would be doing in a pad drilling situation. Construction of this facility was originally planned for April of 2024, but we are going to move that up to mid-March of 24. Drilling was planned for October of 24. We are actually moving that up as well to begin in July of 24, which would then move up our completions operations into August, sort of first part of September. And then our plan would be to change our reclamation date, which originally was next year, would be of May 25 due to the original wintertime drilling. And we actually want to try to get that pad reclaimed this year in October of 2024. So, again, Mr. Jewell had mentioned that this location is a new facility. I just want to emphasize that it was carefully chosen based on its proximity to our existing produced water system within a mile or so of our Mott's Ranch recycling and injection facility. And again, part of that selection was really based on consultation with both CPW and with BLM. Again, this is on federal surface, this location. And as we've said to you before and provided information before, CPW is a major partner in our development, regardless of if HPH is encountered. And in this case, we are not encountering HPH at this time, but that engagement is still necessary for our development planning. So we did have several consultations with CPW. That engagement's really important, as I mentioned. There was a scoping back in May of 22 and then a follow-up in February of 23. They effectively looked at that plan of development, determined that there was no impacts to HPH. And that also included discussions with BLM. And we do have right-of-ways that are required, and we have right-of-ways that have been approved by BLM. And I will mention that BLM does require that we apply a big game winter range timing limitation to these grants, which is partially why we've tried to move the timing up on this. So effectively, there will be no mitigation required due to the current disturbance thresholds that are assessed under BLM's resource management plan. So we will be mindful of the TL that they are looking at starting in December, which is why we've tried to move our schedule up. The other wildlife issue that we're trying to manage is with respect to raptors and migratory birds. We will be beginning a survey in February just to ensure that we aren't impacting migratory birds with this project. So those are the considerations that we have to very much take into account with this project, regardless of the fact that it's not an HPH. But again, proximity to the existing system and existing operations are really critical for this project. As Mr. Jewell mentioned, injection operations are very different than production operations. The location of these wells are within an area that is identified as an injection zone for our operations. We effectively inject water that is in excess. We inject water into the similar formations that we're producing from. So this is an area that is very low in productivity, but it allows us to segregate injection zones from production zones. So we try to segregate that from our production. The drilling and completions of these two wells is fairly short term, about 9 weeks of construction, about 6 weeks for drilling and completions. There will be no flowback and therefore no flowback emissions because these are injection wells. And then, of course, following the drilling and completions and the approval of the UIC underground injection permits, which we have submitted, and we are in conversations, and I believe these permits are in review with Chad Taylor and Curtis Haverkamp with the UIC folks there at the ECMC. But once those permits are approved, because if you approve this application this morning, then we can begin that operation. And just to sort of describe it further, injection operations are fully automated. All produced water that is pumped is using existing infrastructure. Of course, we do have a small pipeline that will be installed to connect with that existing infrastructure. And of course, as required in UIC permits, our surface pressure and volumes are continuously monitored and managed. So wanted just to provide some information there for you on how this operation is very different than what we normally come to you with. But again, I want to thank you for your time this morning. We're grateful for the opportunity to appear. And I'll go ahead and turn it back to Mr. Jewell for closing remarks and look forward to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Commissioner, that's all I have. Thank you again for your time and consideration. Welcome your questions and guidance on this application as always.
Commissioners, the panel is open for questions. Commissioner Messner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question, but a comment. And I've said this before, but I want to re-emphasize it. But and I believe this may be part of your federal permit requirements, but the document that you provide in your application that you title the plan of development, and to the best of my knowledge, TEP is one of the only operators that utilize this plan of development document in our application process. But I find it incredibly helpful and well written, and really gives me a clear picture of what's being proposed and the technologies that are being utilized, the considerations that are being made, and really helps me in my review process as I'm looking at an application and trying to get a really good understanding of what's being proposed. And so I want to just emphasize that I think it's exceptional that TEP continues to provide that document in the permitting process, and I appreciate that very much. And also want to indicate to other operators that may be listening that that is something that would be something that could be looked at to be replicated in other applications, because I think it really does help in our application process. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Ackerman? You're muted, Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm having audio issues today. I just have a comment as well, so maybe we've moved past questions and into deliberations, but I also wanted to say I appreciate the approach of this operator. I've seen a continued thoughtful approach to wildlife protection in an area where wildlife tends to be the primary concern associated with development. A different location for this development certainly could have been chosen that might be more convenient to this operator. It could have been proposed in HPH within our regulations, which could have triggered mitigation and other protective measures and ultimately led to approval. But I wanted to point out that in accordance with the mitigation hierarchy of our regulations, this operator sought first to avoid impacts as much as possible, making, in my opinion, this a thoughtful development to wildlife protection. And I wanted to make sure that the effort put forth in that regard wasn't lost in the nuances of today's conversation. They located this near the road outside of high priority habitat. They have continued pipeline-focused water transport and the continued use of recycled produced water. Good coordination with CPW and BLM, as was discussed today. Also mentioned the big game winter timing limitation, an expedited reclamation plan, migratory bird survey. And I also wanted to just remind everybody that along with the protections mentioned by Mr. Kirtland and Mr. Jewell, and even though no mitigation is required, as with all OGDPs, a detailed wildlife protection plan is required by Regulation 1201A. And that plan has also been provided. It's thoughtful about wildlife, and CPW was able to coordinate with the operator and review that plan. I just wanted to point out those points of this development and appreciate the operator's continued thoughtful approach to wildlife.
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman, for the commentary. Mr. Jewell, did you want to respond? I noticed you unmuted. Okay.
Sorry about that.
With that, if there's no further deliberation, does anyone care to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this OGDP as proposed.
Second.
Motion and a second. AG Mercer, are we in good shape? I think this one's pretty non-controversial without anything further. Big thumbs up from an AG always gives me a warm heart. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The OGDP is approved. We thank you, Mr. Kirtland, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Jewell, and we wish you safe travels.
Any commissioners, appreciate your time.
All right, before we take up the next agenda item, let's take just a quick 5-minute break to let the panel get impaneled. This is OGDP 2309000299, a Chaco Energy Company development. Let's return at 9:40. All right, we are back at the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission, February 7th, 9:40. And we are taking docket number 2309000299, an oil and gas development plan. The applicant is Chaco Energy Company, and they are represented by Ms. Wazalinki. Good morning. Do you want to visualize your witnesses and we'll have them sworn in?
Yes. I know Ms. Petzold, I believe, had a few remarks, but our witnesses are here and ready to be sworn in.
Oh, yep, Ms. Petzel.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Amanda Petzold. I'm the lead location assessment specialist for the Chaco Archerfield OGDP. Thank you for the opportunity to address a typo in the published director's recommendation. In the second paragraph under the proposed development section, the Champlin 360 Amico A number 4 well is inaccurately referred to as the Champlin 360 Amico A number 1 well. Please note this correction to the director's recommendation does not change staff's recommendation for approval. Thank you for the time to address this for the record.
Very good. Questions from commissioners? All right. AG Mercer, let's do the swearing in of the witnesses.
Thank you very much, and good morning to the panelists. Many of you have been here before. We'll just go one at a time. I'll ask you to raise your right hand, state your name, and that you swear to tell the truth. I'll begin with Mr. Germanario. Oh, you're on mute, sir.
This is Mark Germanario, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Falk?
Good morning. My name is Steve Falk, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Good morning. My name is Kurt Nelson, and I swear to tell the truth. There's another Nelson also.
Okay, great. Mr. Matt Nelson?
Hi, my name is Matt Nelson, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. Ms. Brodsky?
I'm Gwen Brodsky, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you very much. I believe that is everybody.
It is. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wozlinski, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have a PowerPoint, so we will bring that up and I will get started. There we go.
Maybe see if we can get it into presentation mode.
Yep. Steve, if you just do play from beginning. And it looks to be in not in presentation mode. Bear with us. This is the hardest part of any.
I apologize to everyone.
Okay.
I will have it on the screen shortly. Screen 1, screen 2, screen 1. Is that it?
It's not in presentation mode, Steve, but perhaps we could just work in this mode and maybe you can minimize the sidebar so we can just see the full PowerPoint. We could even share a PDF.
Apologies to everybody.
I know we had this working yesterday, so
Is it not present? You don't see it still?
No.
It's gone now. We don't see anything.
There it is.
There
Perfect.
you go.
Okay,
Apologies.
thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, commissioners. My name is Kelsey Wozlinski with Jost Energy Law. And with Jamie Jost, we represent Chaco Energy Company in the Archer Field OGDP before you today in docket 2309000299. We would like to thank Karen Voltura for her guidance and efforts on behalf of CPW, Cheyenne County, and also ECMC staff and the director for their efforts on this OGDP. We would also like to thank Ms. Petzold for her clarifying remarks on the director recommendation. Next slide, please. This OGDP requests approval of an approximate 1,169.43 acre oil and gas development plan for the development of 2 new vertical reentry wells and 2 new tank pad locations for a total of 4 new oil and gas locations to target helium gas in the Morrow B sand formation. The requested Form 2As are for the Champlin 360 Amoco A number 4, which is a single well reentry, the Pelton 43-31 number 1, which is also a single well reentry, the Champlin tank pad, and the Pelton tank pad, as shown on this map. Chaco will develop the proposed locations entirely within the approximate 1,169 acre Archer unit, which was established in 1993 by order number 483-1 and is shaded in blue on this map. The Archer Field unit is subject to an existing unit agreement and unit operating agreement to which Chaco is a successor and assign. All gas produced from the Morrow Reservoir will produce directly to the existing Ladder Creek pipeline system. The 4 proposed locations are within Cheyenne County. Cheyenne County does not regulate the siting of oil and gas locations. However, Chaco has been in close communication and consultation with Cheyenne County throughout the OGDP process and has the county's full support. Chaco also had extensive consultation with CPW and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as part of this OGDP. The locations are within the Lesser Prairie Chicken Estimated Occupied Range, or EOR, which encompasses almost all of Cheyenne County. As you will hear from the team today, CPW concluded that the locations are not likely to impact Lesser Prairie Chicken because Chaco is co-locating with existing infrastructure, and the locations are already impacted by other development. And CPW provided a Rule 304 B2B waiver of an alternative location analysis for these locations.
All right, it appears that the recording has restarted. With that, Mr. Nelson, if you maybe want to back up a slide and then just start. I don't think you have to start from the very beginning, but start wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay. I mean, most of that slide is just an introduction to us, but I'll give a quick rundown again. But again, my name is Matt Nelson. I'm Chaco's operations manager for all Rockies assets. In addition to Ms. Wazelinski and myself, we have with us today Kurt Nelson, the president of Chaco Energy, Gwen Brodsky, a permitting specialist from IATA Technical, Steve Falk, a biology expert and Pioneer Environmental Consultants, and Mark Germinario, our principal geologist from Integrated Geologic Solutions. The team is looking forward to providing information about Chaco's proposed development and answering any questions from the commissioners. This is our first hearing before the commission, so I'd like to provide a brief introduction to Chaco before we begin. We're a private corporation based in Denver. Chaco is a registered operator in Colorado and a good standing with the commission. The company was founded in 1991 to acquire and operate producing oil and gas properties. We do in a 7-state area. We've operated in Colorado for 21 years and currently operate 18 wells in the state. Next slide, please, Steve. Chaco's development plan under this OGDP is to re-enter 2 P&A wells. The wells were drilled by prior operators and P&A in the mid-90s. We worked with our geologist, Mark Germinario, to identify this opportunity to re-enter previously developed locations. These are conventional vertical wells. Each well is approximately 5,400 feet deep, and they will be re-entered using just a workover rig. We expect it to take about 2 days to re-enter the well and remove wellbore plugs, and 1 day to case and perforate the well. No simulation is expected on either well due to the high quality of the target reservoir. During production, each well pad will have only a single wellhead and a single buried gas flow line. The reclaimed portion of the well pads will be returned to cultivated croplands and rangeland. Each of the 2 landowners requested that Chaco not place production tanks on the well pads. Instead, they requested the tanks be placed next to areas that already have industrial disturbances. There's a tumbleweed midstream compressor station neighboring the Pelton tank pad. And there's a tumbleweed sales tie-in for a producing well neighboring the Champlin. Chaco's tank pad will use these areas to centralize and consolidate long-term disturbances. Each tank pad will have 1 separator, 1 produced water tank, 1 condensate tank, and an enclosed combustor. From our production experience in the area and offset analysis, we don't expect these wells to produce condensate, but we would like to be prepared for that possibility. All gas will be piped to Tumbleweed's Ladder Creek helium plant and Cheyenne wells using the Chaco tie-in to Tumbleweed's Ladder Creek gathering system. Produced water will be trucked from each tank pad to a Cheyenne County UIC well approximately 2 times per month. Any produced condensate will be trucked from each tank pad to a commercial terminal approximately 4 times per year. Cheyenne County does not regulate oil and gas siting, but Chaco coordinated directly with Cheyenne County in addition to providing the 30-day notice. The county stated its support for the development and waived the need to see a 30-day notice. I'll turn this over to Gwen Brodsky, our permitting specialist from AOTA Technical, who will describe the locations in more detail.
Thank you, Matt. The Chaco locations are uniquely sited in an area with multiple agricultural and industrial disturbances. In the figure on the left, the pads are shown in red and labeled, and around them in each direction are the tumbleweed compressor station, a tumbleweed sales meter, a former helium plant known as the Archer helium plant, multiple turbines from Xcel Energy's Cheyenne Ridge wind project, a state highway and county road, tilled cropland, and an active producing gas well. These photos illustrate the compressor station and the former helium plant. The Chaco locations are co-locating in this area with the other facilities and consolidating activity. Placing tank pads next to the tumbleweed compressor station and next to the old Archer plant also allows the well pads to be reclaimed and downsized to approximately a 1/4 acre during production. And this is particularly helpful for the ag producer on cropland. Next slide, Steve. And in this slide, we see additional photos of the area with the producing well at the bottom and Xcel's turbines and access road. The nearest residence is approximately 4,100 feet away. There is no immediately down gradient surface water. There is no Rule 1202H high priority habitat. The nearest lesser prairie chicken lek buffer is almost 6 miles away. We'll go to the next slide, where we see each of the locations shown again here with red squares is Rule 309 consultation habitat for lesser prairie chicken estimated occupied range, as is much of Cheyenne County. The slide also illustrates the multiple wind turbine buffers affecting the individual locations. 2 of the Chaco locations are affected by 5 and 6 wind turbines. The others are affected by 3 and 4 turbines. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service determined that each wind turbine has an impact of an estimated 1,800 meters, which is almost 6,000 feet and greater than a mile. The nearest wind turbine to a Chaco location is just 490 feet away. Chaco conducted a biological field survey in July 2023. And then with support from Chaco's biology expert, Steve Falk, Chaco began consultation with CPW early in the application process and continued consultation through application submittal and completeness review. CPW concluded that the locations are not likely to impact lesser prairie chicken because Chaco is co-locating with existing infrastructure. The locations are already impacted by other development, so this plan is not adding additional impacts. CPW provided a Rule 304 B2B waiver of an alternative location analysis for the locations. As part of its waiver determination, CPW also factored in the small workover rig, short durations for well reentry, no production lighting, and how infrequently produced water and condensate are offloaded. On Chaco's behalf, Steve also consulted directly with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service lead for lesser prairie chicken in the Fish and Wildlife Service's Colorado field office. The service responded that the locations would not be expected to result in lesser prairie chicken take, and no additional coordination with the service is needed. In the next slide, we'll show a summary of BMPs. Noise will be minimized by short construction and well reentry times. Chaco will use a workover rig instead of a drill rig. There are no nearby receptors. That closest residence is approximately 4,100 feet away. Light will be well reentry task lighting. It'll be mounted on the workover rig and cast downward. Locations will be unlit during production. The wells will have no drilling mud, no fracking, no proppant. Gas will be piped directly to the existing gathering system. And offloading is infrequent. Chaco, as you heard, estimated 2 times per month for produced water and 4 times per year for condensate at each tank pad. The well pads will be visited daily using a light-duty pickup truck. Freshwater use will be minimized to approximately 800 barrels per well because Chaco will complete the wells using recycled produced water. Each pad is expected to disturb approximately 2 acres or less with no uncontrolled stormwater. Tanks will be inside of secondary containment and inspected daily. And regarding wildlife, well reentry avoids habitat fragmentation. Tank facilities are consolidated with the other industrial activity, and then the well pads can be reclaimed down to approximately a quarter acre during the first growing season after well development. And with that, I'd like to turn this back to Kelsey for a further summary of Chaco's request.
Thank you, Gwen. So to summarize the Archer Field OGDP and Chaco's request for approval, I note the following highlights. No petitions were filed or public comments received. CPW was consulted extensively and supports Chaco's compliance with wildlife-related requirements. The siting of the 4 proposed locations, along with the BMPs, demonstrate that the Archer Field OGDP will avoid and minimize potential impacts to public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources, and will protect against any potential adverse environmental impacts to air, water, soil, or biological resources. Chaco respectfully requests approval of the Archer Field OGDP and approval of the 4 proposed Form 2As. This does conclude our presentation. We can take the PowerPoint down now, and our team is here and ready for any questions you have.
Very good. If your team could visualize themselves, that would be great. And the panel is now open for questions from commissioners. Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I think it was on slide 5, the picture of the existing but abandoned helium facility. And I apologize, when I was reading the application, I thought it had been reclaimed. So could you talk to me a little bit about what will happen to that facility as you all plan development? Is it going to be next to it or in place of? And what happens to that facility? I'm sorry I missed that part when I was reviewing.
Thank you, Commissioner McGowan. Matt Nelson, do you want to address that?
Yes, so the plant itself was assigned to the service owner, I believe in 2011, by the prior operator of these wells. So we don't have any plans to reclaim that facility, as we don't have the authority to do so, but we'll offset that disturbance with our proposed champion tank there.
Further questions? Commissioner Messmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I did have just a couple of questions about, I'm having a hard time picturing some of the operations that are being proposed, particularly around the recycling of produced water and how that infrastructure is laid out and how that intends to be utilized. I do note that in your water plan, you talk about no produced water storage on site. And understanding it, there doesn't appear to be anticipated significant amounts of produced water to be utilized in kind of recompletion activities. But is that water to be trucked there and then to be utilized directly from the truck? Is it piped there directly from another site? I'm struggling a little bit with the overall picture of how that is going to work.
Gwen, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, and Matt can weigh in on the number 1 well, which will be the source of produced water. It's close enough that the produced water will be loaded into a tank truck. The tank truck will go to the reentry site, and the water will be used directly as needed from the tank truck, so it doesn't have to be stored on the developed well pad. Matt, was there something you wanted to add for that?
Just the volume we're talking about here is very small. We're talking about maybe 5 or 10 barrels of produced water. And the reason we're using produced water here is just for formation compatibility with perforated as well. But that's, I guess, the technical reasoning for water.
Okay. Yeah, I had thought it was like 50 barrels in the application, and but again, like a relatively small amount to be contemplated, so that helps me understand what the plan is. It wasn't totally clear in the application, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you're right, Commissioner Messner. It's 50 barrels per well, 100 barrels total. And it might have been Matt's referring to as it's being dispensed. But the water plan does have 50 barrels.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for the panel? All right, seeing no further questions, we will move into deliberations. Does any commissioner desire to initiate deliberations? Commissioner Ackerman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We've heard a number of different applications within lesser prairie chicken habitat, especially in the estimated occupied range, and this one also is in that range. As was noted, the great majority of Cheyenne County is mapped as estimated occupied range for lesser prairie chicken. And I appreciate this operator's efforts to work with CPW and work within the mitigation hierarchy to avoid, minimize, and then mitigate impacts to lesser prairie chicken. As was mentioned, avoidance of habitat in general isn't possible, but I would argue that co-locating facilities in industrial areas is definitely an avoidance tactic within that LPC habitat by locating in an area in which lesser prairie chicken are quite unlikely to be found. I also appreciate the minimization of impacts through reentry procedures for the 2 wells, and I believe this operator has taken the appropriate steps from a wildlife perspective to protect and avoid and minimize and mitigate impacts to lesser prairie chicken to the extent possible, and appreciate those efforts. And Mr. Chair, if there's no further deliberation, I would move for approval, but certainly open to further discussion.
We have a tentative motion on the table. We have a absolute second on the table. So motion and second to approve. Is there further discussion? I want to echo the thoughts of Commissioner Ackerman. I think this is well done, well located, and appreciate the efforts on the part of the applicant and our staff to bring it to us. With no further discussion, we will entertain the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The OGDP is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Commissioners, with that, our agenda is concluded for the day. We would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. We will see you at our next agenda. Thank you.